So the internet marketing world at the moment is going a little bit crazy, and it's going crazy because Alex Hormozi has just broke a whole bunch of records. He's arguably just done the biggest internet marketing digital product launch in history of internet marketing, $105 million. I think that's correct. That's a lot of money, and that is head and shoulders above other people. Now, when I saw this launch get done, it was over the period of like 4 days, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm gonna rush to my YouTube channel, dust it off a little bit, and give you some persuasion insights that I think you might have missed in the video, because that's my speciality, right? But then I thought, you know what? I'm actually gonna wait a few days because I want to see what the internet reacts, how the internet reacts to this. And I'm very glad that I did do that, because in that time, a flood of videos have come out and nearly everyone has basically fell into two different distinct camps. In one corner, you've got the people calling him a genius, absolute master of internet marketing, and saying the event was the greatest ever marketing event in history. And in the other corner, the other camp, you have people calling it manipulative. They were calling it a scammy cash grab. They're saying his reputation's been ruined. So here's where I stand on Hormozi. I actually really like the Hormozis. I like their work. I've even made a video before analyzing his persuasion tactics that he's doing in the video that he uses so effectively. And in today's video, we're actually gonna go much deeper. We're gonna break down the specific tactics that worked brilliantly, what fell flat, and also the subtle psychological triggers that you might have missed as well. We'll also describe a little bit about why these two camps have come up and why some people really don't like, Hormozi selling to them, even though he's gave so much value over the years as well, because that's very interesting. Now, if you're new to this channel, you might be thinking, who is this guy with only 1,000 subscribers who is telling me about marketing? Well, my name is Robert and I consult for various different companies on persuasion and ethical behavioral science as well. I was trained directly by the Cialdini Institute, who's the world's foremost authority on persuasion, in the same group that advises massive giants like Google, Disney, Microsoft on persuasion and putting it in their business and getting them the results they want. In my own consulting work, I've generated millions upon millions of dollars for various different clients by applying ethical and evidence-based principles. So when it comes down to breaking stuff down like this launch, I love it. You're in the right place as well, because I know a little bit about it. So I want to make it clear, this isn't a hit piece, it isn't a fan video either. It's just a detailed analysis of what happened and why it worked. First, let's unpack a really common misconception. And this misconception is that Alex Hormozi's launch was powered by reciprocity. And reciprocity in persuasion and behavioral science is where you do good things for people and they feel the need to do good things back to you, almost like a favor, right? And I hear the word reciprocity get chucked around an awful lot these days, but people don't really understand it that well. If I'm honest with you, people think I'm going to throw up a lead magnet, I'll give people some value, and that's reciprocity. It's not actually, if you look at the definition of it. The classic definition of reciprocity is simple. When you do a favor for them, they feel a psychological obligation to return it to you. And it's an unconditional favor that you're doing for them. So crucially, it works best when the request comes immediately after a favor. So it's actually a tight loop. Hormozi's strategy wasn't classic reciprocity. He actually spent years providing immense value for free, a gift for the public. And you might think, well, this builds a giant reciprocity bank that he ended up cashing in. But in my experience, that's actually not how humans work at all. It's not how human psychology works. When you give for a long period of time without asking something, you end up creating something called the entitlement trap. And this entitlement trap has probably affected you in your relationships with people. At some point, if you're a nice person, if you tend to do things for other people, it might have affected you in your free content. And what that means is that people end up seeing that you give free value all the time. And rather than thinking to themselves, you know what, it's so nice this person is giving lots of free value to me, they actually think to themselves, well, this is just kind of how it is. This is just what Alex does all the time. He just does it, and they don't actually see it as a gift anymore. So when you finally pivot to a high ticket sale like Alex has done here. He's had obviously the free book, but the back end of that launch there was the $6,000, and I believe that was the lowest rung on the ladder for his consulting and his work. So when you pivot to that, after years and years and years of people drinking from this open tap of free knowledge, where they've stopped seeing it as free value anymore, what actually happens is it feels jarring, it feels out of character, it creates all this resistance. People are like, whoa, it's kind of like when your car goes over one of those bumps over a bridge and you're like, whoa, you get that belly feeling. It's a strange feeling. So this goodwill certainly built a loyal audience, but the raw actual closing power of the launch didn't come from that sense of obligation to return the favor for him. I believe it actually came from something which was much more primal, and that is the fear of loss aversion and scarcity. He put that 72-hour window up there, saying that he's never again going to do this, framing the bundle as something which, if you miss out on it, you're missing out on a lot of stuff. And these elements trigger that FOMO. It triggers the fear of missing out. And people are actually more motivated by that fear of losing an opportunity than by the prospect of gaining something of equal value. And this is down to Carmen's research on the prospect theory, if you want to read a little bit more into that. And that, I believe, was the real engine driving the sales there. It wasn't actually the reciprocity. By the way, quick message here. I actually don't sell anything on this channel. I don't sell courses. I don't really sell consulting either. But what I am going to do, because I know there's a bunch of you who run perhaps 7, 8, or 9-figure businesses who are interested in persuasion and learning more about it and more about the nuances, I've set up a separate channel, and I'll put it on the screen right now, that you can come and check it out and follow if you like. I'll also link the separate channel down in the description as well. And this is for people who want to learn more about advanced persuasion and case studies of where hundreds of thousands or millions have been added onto companies. So if you like that sort of stuff, click on over and I'll see you in those videos. But speaking of, the engine of sales, another big thing that I think people and the breakdowns that I've seen aren't taken into consideration is the super fan effect. Now, I am continually fascinated by the powerful, almost like tribe-like communities that form around influencers, major influencers. I've looked at Andrew Tate, I've looked at Iman Gadzhi, I've looked at all the big names, Liver King, Alex Hormozi. I've even done breakdowns on figures like Donald Trump as well. And it is so interesting how there is a group of people, the super fans, who glue to these people, and they will do everything they say. And I underestimate it each time, because I don't think, maybe I have, but I can't remember a time where I've ever been like that with someone. I might just be blocking it out with my brain to prevent my own cognitive dissonance, but I actually can't think of a time where I've been like that with someone. Well, it's incredibly difficult to argue, rationally for or against these types of people online, because you're not debating facts, you're actually challenging someone's identity. When you get a super fan, they like somebody so much it becomes their identity as well. And it isn't just like a transaction, it's actually a feeling of belonging. They belong in this person's circle, which is why Alex Hormozi, he knows this, and for a long time, it's probably a bigger effect than he thought it would ever be, to be honest with you. But I remember he went through a period of time where he used to say Mosey Nation, right? Like you're part of his in-group. I've seen that guy, Hamza, who is, I believe he's like a self-improvement guy, and he's created the Adonis Academy or something like that. Basically, he describes his loyal followers as Adonis, who's the guy who is, everything that you would want to be, right? And it gives them that feeling of belonging, and it reaffirms their status as a true supporter. And these are the people who will buy anything that you release because it connects them deeper to you and the community. So because Hormozi has an audience of millions, the sheer mathematics means that even if only a fraction of them are super fans, There's probably a lot more than just a fraction of superfans. There's still thousands of people who are ready to buy high ticket offers without any type of hesitation there. And that's how you get to those staggering revenues numbers so quickly. An important point as well on this point, I think internet marketing has evolved so much over time. It used to be a very niche thing. And then over the last 4 or 5 years or so, we've kind of seen these figures who are selling something online, or at least giving value. In Hormozi's case, he hasn't sold anything yet so far. But it's kind of broke into the mainstream, which has really never been done before. And if you look at the people who were the biggest influencers back in the day, first person who ever taught me online marketing, very talented guy. His name's Ramit Sethi, and he's one of the OGs, right? He taught me about copywriting, he taught me about all sorts of stuff. But he didn't have, very talented, but he didn't have anywhere near the amount of audience members that Alex Hormozi has. But he also didn't have anywhere near the amount of audience members as Tai Lopez has, right? And then, you know, Tai Lopez came along in the next wave, and he got to a certain level, and so did Grant Cardone. And then the next wave is even bigger, and each stage gets more and more, you know, it's closer to the mainstream basically. And the mainstream is where all of the revenue happens. And you've seen, in this case, we've seen over the years, and I find this fascinating, we've seen The Rock quoting Andrew Tate, the Rock quoting Alex Hormozi. We've seen Jimmy Carr quoting, who's a British comedian, quoting Alex Hormozi. We've seen lots of people. And as internet marketing evolves, it's going more and more mainstream, which basically means more and more eyeballs. And it's a brand new audience who actually aren't used to internet marketing at all. I've been around the game a minute. I've been in marketing for years and persuasion for years. Like, it's very hard to convince me to do anything without it triggering my super logical brain, because I know all the tricks, right? So in a way, I'm kind of like almost like a Jedi master at defending against the tricks. My brain just automatically goes, no, that doesn't work. And I'm not even aware of it, but it just doesn't work on me very well. And I find that absolutely fascinating, because now we've got a huge amount of audience that he's pulling on. And it makes me wonder if, like, the next wave of people, the next gurus who will reach the top, is the wave going to be even bigger? I don't know. We'll soon see, right? Next up, let's take a critical look at the strengths and weaknesses of the launch as well. We've talked a few bits about what he's done really, really well, but I believe the launch suffered initially because it had too many competing goals. I didn't listen to the full thing. I'll, be honest. But the parts I did listen to, I tuned in. I've got to see it. I like the guy. I think he's, very sophisticated at selling. So I've got to watch this stuff. And when I actually listened to some of the stuff, I was a little bit confused. I was a little bit like, what exactly is his offer here? It seems to be that, he's giving away the book and then he's asking you to donate the book, but it's tax deductible and you can donate it to who you want, but then they've got to pay shipping costs, and but then it's $6,000 and you also get all these other bits as well. But then, and for this day, you've got like one book, which is, you can only claim if you tune in this day. And it was confusing, right? I was thinking, what is his actual goal here? Is it to sell the $6,000? Is it to sell the book? Is it to sell an 18,000 upsell? Is to break a world record? And he did do that successfully, but when you try to do everything at once, the core message actually gets very diluted and it gets confusing as well. And this is especially dangerous to poor Alex and Layla, who were talking for, 10 hours per day, marathon live stream, right? I tuned in again at around hour 9, and fair play to Alex, he didn't have quite the same energy as he did at hour 1. I watched it in little tiny bits, and I remember thinking at hour 8, I was like, this guy's still going. Or fair play. But the human brain basically has a limited capacity for processing information, and it's behavioral science, it's neuroscience, right? When you bombard people with offers, with bonuses, with upsells and contests, you trigger something called cognitive overload. And the universal rule in sales and marketing is that if a mind is confused, it doesn't buy. A confused mind doesn't buy. Confusion actually creates friction, and friction kills conversions as well. And I honestly believe this was the single biggest weakness of the live event. However, there was a major strength which I believe counteracted this. It was the follow-up emails which he did to accompany it. In those follow-up emails, they were phrased brilliantly, and you can tell him he's been a good copywriter, or he's got a good team of copywriters behind him, because the emails which came out afterwards were crystal clear. They told you exactly what you were going to get, exactly what the bonus was, exactly what the reward was, exactly when the time frame was. And in the behavioral science world, this is called layering of information. One of the organizations that I've helped, they work in the financial world in the UK, right? And it's very strict financial regulations. And part of those financial regulations is making things crystal clear to customers, because gone are the days in the UK where you can just say anything and say, this credit card has 8.4 APV if you don't blah, 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 and all this stuff, right? You need to make it crystal clear to the person in plain English exactly what you're getting. And if you can't in a single communication, you've got to offer multiple communications to break it down until it's simpler, because humans can only take in so much information at a single time, right? And so I thought his emails, his follow-up emails, were exceptionally clear. They acted as a clarity cleanup crew. They broke down, this really complicated and convoluted, in my opinion, offer into these simple bullet points. They restated the value and provided a single clear call to action. And in my view, those emails rescued basically a huge number of the sales that would have been lost to the confusion of the whole main event. So another massive strength was novelty. And there is a lot of evidence that a lot of companies fail because of this, actually. A lot of company products has failed. I've been in successful launches, and I've also been in failed launches as well of various different products, of various different companies. Another big thing is novelty. And novelty can work both ways. So novelty is new information, or something which is new and presented. And when you give something new to your audience, or something they've never seen before, or even a different approach, you present things in a different way. A, you either get a bunch of competitors copying all this novel approach, or B, the novelty gets understood by the business as success, where novelty is just novelty. So you might get a massive spike in sales because you have presented some novel information to people, or a novel product, right? And they think this product's amazing. It's absolutely, it's a beast. It's destroying everything else we've ever done, right? But then it doesn't actually hold up. It dies a death. And so companies have shifted whole metrics and whole things onto just the success of a novel product, when they shouldn't really have done. They should have hung back a little while. But his approach was completely different from anything we've seen at this scale. This novel approach he did was a 10-hour free masterclass on launch day. And he was framing a purchase as a donation of books, so a live public attempt to break a Guinness World Record. And this cocktail of new ideas actually breaks the noise. So we have novelty in behavioral science. It hijacks attention. It tells our brains, pay attention to this, because this is different. I'm not used to this. Have you ever driven home from work and you've got home and you're like, I can't remember driving home, right? Like, what happened? I don't really remember any of the journey. It's because the journey isn't novel and you've done it lots of times, so your brain just forgets these little bits. It's very important, because when something is different, it grabs our attention and it creates an event like atmosphere where people felt they were actually part of a historic moment, because of the great work by Alex and his team is hyping everyone up, which in itself is actually a powerful driver for action. But here's the key, as I talked about before, novelty has a short shelf life. And because Hormozi was actually the first to do it, it was groundbreaking. But now what's going to happen, inevitably, you will see, and the same thing happened when I started talking about psychology on this channel. I got a bunch of copycats. I saw people in masterminds on YouTube clips copying me word for word, and the same thing right here is going to happen to, Hormozi. He's going to get an army of copycats trying to replicate it. But I'll save all you guys, if you're thinking about doing that, a lot of work, because it's not going to work for you as well as it worked for him, because it's no longer novel. It will just feel like a long, unoriginal webinar. And sure, the first few people to copy it, they actually might have some success with it, but they won't have any, still those people won't have anywhere near the amount of success as he had with it, because he was an innovator in that moment as well. Now, let's talk about a subtle weakness here. So the point where he had on his screen, he had a number on his screen of how many copies were being sold, and it was a huge number, right? The point of this is social proof, right? He has this live sales counter on screen, which is showing classic and powerful social proof. But it has a tipping point. So some people are going to see that number and think, you know what, lots of people are purchasing this, I'm going to purchase it as well. The number is also going to serve a different fact in that it's going to anchor that huge number to actually the value of the sale. So the $6,000 that you're going to pay, look, it looks tiny in comparison to the actual number on the screen, the 2.5 million or whatever it was at the time, because there's such a contrast in the number. So it'll make the $6,000 feel cheaper. But social proof itself has a tipping point. When a number becomes so astronomical, like millions, right, that it defies the viewer's frame of reality, it can actually flip from social proof into skepticism. So I've actually experienced this myself on this channel, and I ran a test. I did it by accident the first time because I kind of like to freestyle on videos. So I opened some of my videos saying, I have helped businesses generate over $100 million, blah, 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 blah. And every time I said that at the start of a video, every time I said that, I saw my audience actually drop and click off the video by about 20%. So I caught it the first time. And then I tested it on about 8 other videos. Bear in mind, I have consulted for huge companies. Companies do 100 million, right? Sometimes they do 8 figures, sometimes they do 9 figures plus, right? To get a 1% increase on what they're selling using some ethical persuasion on a product that they're selling, it's not that hard, all right? So when I said that, my audience don't have that context. When I said that, it became across as unbelievable because I'm a very small channel. And my credibility actually dropped rather than increased there. So sometimes social proof actually has the opposite effect when it becomes unbelievable. So he, right there, had these huge numbers on the screen. People probably haven't ever seen that many book sales before. And so it's difficult to know whether there was a credibility mismatch. He obviously has like 1 million in audience, but that can also increase viewer skepticism as well. So from that, I'm just going to throw it out there that my opinion is Hormozi probably hit a similar wall for a segment of his audience there. The figures felt so huge that they actually felt unbelievable to people. And people started to think, well, the only way you've hit that is if you are, scamming, is if you are making up the numbers. And that kind of fueled the backlash and accusations of it being fake. So I've rambled a little bit in this video, but I genuinely like talking about this. It's like my passion to talk about persuasion and, how people work. To wrap this all up, the launch was a really complex and fascinating case study in persuasion. I don't believe it was powered by reciprocity. I believe it was a little bit powered by reciprocity, but it was more masterful execution of scarcity and novelty as well. It leveraged the immense power of the superfan community, his own group of superfans. And because his audience size is so huge, he has a huge, probably audience of superfans as well. But at times, I believe they struggled a little while on, and this is just me taking a stab in the dark. I don't know any of his, the metrics or analytics that he had. Maybe I'm wrong here. But I believe that the launch created quite a confusing message because there was multiple goals, there was multiple objectives of this actual launch. And while its use of social proof was powerful, the sheer scale of the numbers may have inadvertently created some skeptics. So I think that's probably an explanation for why some people have swayed into camp 2. That camp is more skeptical. I feel like he recovered that all with email, because emails are fantastic. So well done, Alex's team, in working on the emails. Well done, Alex, for the sheer work ethic here, and the team as well. His fans, of course, will call this all genius, and his critics, of course, will call it all a scam. For me, the truth is that it was a brilliantly engineered marketing event that pushed the known boundaries of launches, exposing both its incredible power and its potential pitfalls as well. I think we will see more of these things here, but that would be incredibly difficult to outdo from what I've seen. I think it has probably inspired a lot of people to try harder. There is nothing like, and I'll leave you with this thought, there is nothing like trying to create a business or something great as a newbie or even as an intermediate or a master level entrepreneur, and seeing somebody else work extremely hard in front of you as well. It inspires action, and I like that approach. And so, yeah, I think that was fantastic to see. I hope you enjoyed this video breakdown. Take it easy. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you think I am. Of course, as we know, people, if you think Hormozi is a scammer, you're going to continue thinking he's a scammer. Nothing's going to change your mind. If you think he's a genius, you're going to continue thinking he's a genius as well. Nothing's going to change your mind. So there's probably going to be a bunch of angry comments here who are going to come for me and say, whatever you just said, Rob, you're wrong. Okay. But take it easy, guys. See you later.